Welcome, Tauvlo team. I'm really excited to talk to you today. The RWA space seems to be blowing up. And so since you guys are working in the real estate space, I wanted to have you on. So it's a full party here. We've got three of you here. So we'd like to go around and do some introductions real quick.
Okay, so I'll start. Hi, everyone. My name is Guillermo. I am the CEO at Tauvlo. We are a real estate tokenization platform.
Yeah, hi. Hi guys, I'm Marek. I'm more into the technical stuff in Tauvlo. My background is somewhere between high frequency trading, AI, blockchain smart contract development.
And I'm Michael Levi. Thanks for having us here, Mikhail. My background, I've spent the past 4 years in crypto and blockchain, running marketing, product, and strategy for Kava, for Bitstamp, and for a collection of layer 1, layer 2, MPC wallet and Web3 projects.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, all three of you, for making the time. I wanted to have you on because, as I mentioned, RWA seems to be a very hot topic right now. And I feel like it's more than just a buzzword. There's so much that needs to be uncovered. And a lot of the development is happening within the financial market in terms of bonds, in terms of treasury bills. But outside the United States, there's a lot happening in regards to real estate. Why are we seeing so much attention towards tokenization of real estate?
So, for me, I'll take it even higher level. I think the biggest challenge for the industry is sort of moving into chapter 2, right? Moving into actual use cases. For me, my background prior to coming into blockchain and crypto and DeFi, I came up through kind of hard classic industry channels, right? I came up through supply chain, enterprise software. I spent a chunk of time in renewable energy. What I fell in love with was the underlying ability to take this technology basis, right? To have, through the smart contract structure, effectively this distributed ledger. And then, everything that you can do with that distributed ledger, through things like fractionalization, and all of the, really core processes that you can unlock, right? And take to classical industries like real estate. And it's sort of this convergence point, right? Because you have this underlying technology that can manage this level of fractionalization. And because it comes with, kind of a financial package and gateways through DeFi to other products that you can bring into the purchase event on both sides of the purchase, on the buy side and on the sell side. And because you have things like progress within the layer 1, layer 2 space, where you now have the ability to manage transactional frequency and volume and cost at a level that isn't this massive add-on in terms of expense. And that sort of matches a little bit more where the world is in terms of when you buy something, you expect the transaction to happen, then you don't wait and get in the back of a line and wait for it to pass through. So you've got all these elements that are coming together. And you've got a really strong need to move past sort of Gen 1 NFTs, right? Animated JPEGs, and gaming has made a lot of progress, but it's still, first of all, it's just a slice of the market, obviously, and of the overall addressable market. And secondly, there's a lot of progress that still needs to be made in order to get Web3 gaming to the level of Web2 gaming and mass adoption. So when our whole conversation, the three of us started, we sort of looked at the most obvious low-hanging fruit in terms of where there is an exact product market fit. And real estate was the obvious, right? So when you take kind of everything that I was just saying from a market landscape perspective, real estate traditionally has a very high bar of entry, right? It's very capital intensive, even if you're talking at the consumer level, right? I live in San Francisco. If you're, 5-10 years into your career and you're trying to get a property in San Francisco that's within reasonable commute in the neighborhood you want to live in, it's just a massive, massive expense. And this is before interest rates started to skyrocket, right? So, you take that, I think that's an issue that's facing everybody in the world. And so you've got this high bar of entry just to participate, and you can participate through classic products like REITs. But you are passive in that, right? You're joining kind of a fund. You're joining a vehicle that's looks and feels a lot like legacy Wall Street products. That too also has a minimum that can be unobtainable for some folks. We're talking in thousands of dollars to enter. So there's this great opportunity to just unlock real estate in terms of participation through fractionalization by bringing down that price point. Not only does that lower the barrier of entry down from thousands of dollars to $100 or less, but it also gives you, through this beautiful thing of decentralization, it gives you control. You have the ability to, decide the frequency, the amount, and the type of property that you want to own, right? That you want to have a piece of. And that allows you to execute strategies that are tuned to where you want them to be, right? So you can create a diversified basket. You can create a collection of assets that are maybe some in places like London and Paris and New York, where you're looking for a combination of just asset appreciation, right? Or you're looking for residual rental incomes, right? A consistent revenue stream, because obviously in the smart contract, you've got the ability to not only monitor and manage, but distribute the earnings in a very clean, immutable way. And the composability factor, of what we can do, of what we can build, extending this even further by bringing things like DeFi into the mix, and by bringing things like, so on the Rails side, we've got the ability to build out with DEXs and with AMMs and different on-ramps for people to come into the platform and exit the platform. Similarly with DeFi, we've got the ability to use these assets as collateral for loans and to really open up the entire DeFi spectrum, connecting all these assets together in a very clear way. So that's sort of on the buyer side value. And then on the real estate holding side value, there's this need for the market to evolve. When you take a look at what the buying experience is like, dealing with sort of, let's just call it the Web 2 or even the Web 1, I'd say, structure of classic real estate, you've got layers and layers and layers of people, if we're going to be pejorative, we could say parasites, right? Who are sitting in the transaction that are touching and slowing down and taking a fee, taking a cut. We're talking 20% or higher of the transaction cost. And so, in terms of the efficiencies that we bring to both sides, right, we reduce that cost simply because we're disintermediating, right? So the smart contract takes the place of a lot of that escrow and legal process of the transaction. It also affords the ability to streamline or make the transaction virtually bankless, right? Because you've got the ability to come in and actually transact at the token level. And then, this isn't just, I've listed out everything that's good for the consumer, but, for the realtors, for the property owners, this is a massive way to unlock new customers with very low acquisition costs, because effectively what they can do is they can bring their properties to the platform. And they can source customers at virtually zero cost on the platform globally, right, at a fractional level. So, it's at their discretion how they term the fractionalization, right? It can be a single owner. They can just find a single consumer for their product, for their properties, or they could go the fractionalization route and accrue. And then, we could just keep double clicking, right? So if we take that in terms of like apartments and houses, that gives them access to both fractional customers and single customers. If we take a look at this at a larger scale for some of the more commercial real estate holding companies, they've got portfolios. It gives them the opportunity to take a look at their portfolio and decide where do they want to free up some cash flow, right? They've got the ability to partially tokenize their portfolio at whatever level that they see, which, gives them immediate cash flow. It gives them immediate liquidity that they can then take and grow the business or do whatever they wish to do with it. So, the idea for us, very long-winded way of answering your question, but the idea for us is that there are just a tremendous amount of opportunities in the real estate vertical, right? and it's aligned very much not just with the technology base of blockchain, but the ethos of blockchain as well. It really flattens the world. It creates a global economic flow that has value on both sides of the equation, and it just brings a lot of efficiency into the marketplace itself.
Guillermo or Marek, anything to add to that?
From my perspective, like I'm probably the one of the ideal groups that Tauvlo will be targeting. I have a mortgage, right? I have a house, and what I would like to do is to, for example, free up some of the value that I have in the house, and use the liquidity, right? So I could do that through the tokenization, whether I could either sell part of the house, or I could take a loan against part of the house, which would be interesting. Another thing is I have like a lot of friends around me at my age that they make a lot more than they need, but they don't make enough to buy their own apartments at the moment, right? And what they would like to do is to let's say we're in Prague, they would like to buy an apartment in Prague, and they could start with buying, for example, 1% of this apartment, 1% of some other apartment, and so on. And the investment that they would make would grow proportionally to the apartment that they would buy down the line, right? And they could use these fractions to as part of the collateral for their own apartment, right? Which is very, very interesting. And the money is not just sitting somewhere in the bank doing nothing, but it's actually working for them. So that's I believe a huge use case for us.
Yeah, no, just I mean, you can see that our main motto here is to unlock the real estate market to millions of users that don't have the enough capital to buy the whole apartment, the whole property, but would happily invest thousands, not hundreds, but thousands. So that new market that we are creating, that's the main motivation to unlock it. Because if you ask, there's a few things here, but if you ask we are in the crypto industry mainly, so we are all very financially savvy, but everybody out there, the financial literacy in the world is like really low, actually. And we think real estate resonates with everybody. Once you would have the wealth, once you're there, where would you put your money? And chances are many answers are going to be real estate. Of course, I like gold, I like all these hard assets, but all these stocks, bonds, all that, it does require a certain level of financial literacy that I think we people that are in the system kind of forget about that. And yeah, and we feel that real estate resonates with everybody. And by the way, the project is called Tauvlo. Tauvlo means brick in Greek, so it's literally brick-backed tokens. So they're backed by hard asset, and it doesn't get any more ancient and primitive than owning real estate. So definitely we want to connect that with that and unlock that market to this. And of course, one is the high barrier to entry, but also then is the liquidity side. Because as Michael mentioned, like good luck selling it, or all these processes, notaries, listing, and the fee here, commission there. So definitely we see what the vision we have is to make it accessible for everyone, any amount and anytime. So that's what we started with.
Interesting. And I know majority of the benefits come from investing in the actual property. What about a scenario where somebody wants to live in a property, let's say 50% of the year? Are you seeing real life examples where people are, maybe they can only afford 25% of the property, but that 25% allows for them to stay within that particular building 25% of the time? You know, are you seeing scenarios like that more on the residential side?
We haven't. We sit back a little bit further, so we don't actually see what happens at the utilization level, other than setting it up in terms of things like payment streams and fee streams, and sort of on both sides of the equation, right? Both in terms of rent collection and in terms of if we have inside of our offer a whole ecosystem of partners that provide the services for maintenance, that provide services for remodeling, it's a true end-to-end marketplace in that design. What you described is really interesting. I think that, let's just take the scenario that you described, right? Somebody only has the ability to afford 25% of a property, and they kind of have a bit of a lifestyle where they're moving around and, only want to spend 25% of their time. There's nothing stopping that scenario or any imaginative scenario because of the smart contract, right? So long as that all parties who are participating in that particular tokenization, like the terms and conditions of that property and in the governance of that property, are aligned. So, your scenario is 100% doable in a almost co-op. I mean, it kind of feels like a co-op type of property at that point. We 100% can support that. The technology, that is the essence and the beauty of what it is that we're building. So there's no reason why not, right? In terms of, have we seen that? This is a very early market. So, there is no real trend lines yet because there's not enough volume to determine and show a trend. But that's actually a very interesting angle.
Yes, sir. We were thinking about if you own, you're a fractional owner of a certain property, proportionally to the ownership, you could also have access to spend vacations there, because for rental apartments in hot vacation areas, that could be also very interesting, and it's even a way to gamify the tool and make it even more attractive to that. So yeah, at that level, we've sort of had, and as Michael says, there are many other use cases that come.
Yeah, and Guillermo brings up a phenomenal point, right? And it goes back to this point that we're actually aggregating a bunch of different things into one. So just to sort of stand on the shoulders of what Guillermo was talking about with vacation properties, in a single platform, you've got the ability, and this goes back to that, you decide, right? You decide you take a position in vacation properties that have, very high seasonal inflows of rental revenue or access for yourself, almost in kind of like, this isn't how we would call it, but kind of in that traditional evolution of the timeshare model, right? But you also have ownership and appreciation and everything that comes along with it. So it's not just timeshare in terms of like augmenting or replacing hotel costs, right? You actually have a position in the marketplace, but you have that option. You have like a rental property sort of Airbnb option anywhere in the world, right? You've got a ability to take a position just as either a landlord or an owner, right? You've got all of these options, and that's that control that we're bringing to the participants, to the investors, because that's your choice how you build out and structure that, not just in asset type, but in location. So you can balance, say, a really hot market in Europe with a more affordable market opportunity elsewhere, right? You can create this global view that you control that is purely like, if you look at this as an investor, it gives you the ability to create that diversified basket to your specification and to your degree, percentage, the location, all of those things are available to you.
Yeah, and that's another difference maybe with the real estate investment trust that we are often asked, like, how is it different? And Michael touched before, by being an effective owner, you have the rights in the property that you would not have through just participating in the profit of the property, which is essentially what rights are. So, ownership, empowerment, participating in the new economy, and then benefiting from it. We feel this is also like why Web3 has been built, and rather than highly centralized product that others build, that they just give you a bit, you're not really participating on that. So that's definitely very interesting for us.
And it's funny, what we've left out is it's all crypto native as well, right? So, I mean, the whole essence of this is that, you can move into and out of this through a complete crypto native experience.
So let's just say that I'm an investor or potential investor, and I believe in blockchain, the power of blockchain technology, and I want to tap into this particular financial class. But my concern is that it may not necessarily be recognized in the court of law or just within government bodies. Should that be a concern for investors?
No, because we're not changing the legal process. We're simply digitizing it, right? So we're replacing paper, and we're not even this isn't even a revolution, right? We're literally just pulling processes. You buy a house right now, you're docu-signing things, you're going through a digital process. So we're not changing. That would almost kind of be a fool's errand to go and try and change the way that the transactions and the terms and conditions in the legal process is set. We're not changing any of that. All that we're doing is we're bringing efficiency to the marketplace for visibility and exchange, and to the transaction process from a legal and financial standpoint.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into your specific platform that you've been working on. Walk me through what is typically the customer journey for somebody that is interacting with your platform.
Yeah, so there are generally two ways how to do that, depending on who you are, right? So you might already have some crypto. In that case, you just connect your wallet. You come to the web page, you come to the app, you connect your wallet. You pick the house that you like. You go to the marketplace. You either take the price that is offered on the market, or you create your quote that you want to buy, given fraction or given size at a given price. And then it's going to get matched at some point, and you become one of the owners of that property, right? And there is second option, how to do this. The difference is that you don't have your crypto assets yet, which means we have to on-ramp you on chain. And what we are going for is that you, as a user that doesn't have crypto, you're not going to notice that you are on blockchain, right? Because we want to make the user experience as smooth as possible for the end user. And then you continue the same way as the user that would have crypto assets. You just select the house or houses that you would like, or apartments, and you buy the shares. And then when you have these shares, you are collecting the rent, and you are part of the governance of that given property, right? So what might happen is that once in a while there might be a proposal that given apartment has to be painted inside, right? So there will be proposal including quote, the price, say, and company that's going to do that, and so on, and when it would happen. And then you just vote based on your opinion whether it should be painted or not. And then the votes are collected, and the painting or something else happen or doesn't happen, right? And yeah, that's how you go from nothing to owning part of the property and managing it. And then there's the potentially last part, which is, for example, either selling the property or getting a loan against the property or against the shares, right? So let's say you need liquidity. You have two options, as I said. You could go into the platform and you could just sell the property. You could sell it immediately, or you could create your own quote, which would mean that you would get a better price, but you wouldn't get it immediately, which means you would wait for someone else to come in and buy it from you. Or you could get a loan against the fractions of that property. which means you're not working with the full value of that property. So, for example, your share would be valued at, let's say, $1,000, for example. You could get a loan for something like $750, right? And you could go and do something else with it. You could even buy more real estate with more shares with this money. So that's how you go from the start to the end. Yeah.
Really like what you said about, getting to a place where people don't even realize they're utilizing blockchain. That's obviously the goal. I think that's the motto, so to speak, this next cycle. But it is running on blockchain. So for those that are maybe more interested in the blockchain technology, I want to ask, are there any specific types of chains that are better utilized for this type of marketplace, or like what are you seeing on that side?
Yeah. So there are chains that are looking for projects like ours. There are chains that are technologically good for projects like ours, but not necessarily targeting targeting us, right? But from our perspective, we don't want to be limited to specific blockchain, right? Just because there might be some users that wouldn't want to take care of the bridging and so on, like crypto native users that wouldn't want to do the bridging and so on. So we want to be available on several chains, just because of this like user availability, so that the user could come in immediately and do stuff immediately. But yeah, there are definitely chains that are better than others for this.
And the only thing I'd add to that, just to tie it back to your first point, this interoperability, all of those sort of technical requirements, those technical steps, we want to eliminate them all, because your first point is probably the most important, not only for us, but for the whole industry, which is like, you shouldn't know what technology you're driving. Like if you're in a car and you don't care, what difference does it make if it's a diesel versus gas? You want to get from point A to point B, right? So, that's critical, because this model is to really address, our first wave will be absolutely crypto natives, right? These are folks who are used to transacting. Like when we take a look at the first wave of growth, like that is precisely where we're going from an investor standpoint, simply because it's a group of people who are used to looking at the world in this way, right? And then behind that, we're going to be expanding and educating to, if you take a look at this in terms of like that crossing the chasm analogy, right? In order to get from the early adopters to the early majority, it's always about simplification and removing real and perceived technical risk and all the friction in the buying process. So the idea is with Tauvlo, all you need is the motivation and the desire to participate in real estate. The rest is just showing up to your computer and doing research and making decisions, right? You don't need technical acumen. You don't need to understand how to move things across chains. You don't necessarily need to do much other than decide and have a wallet, right?
What do you think needs to happen in order for this to be available in the United States?
Yeah. So as the American here, I'll lead with this question. So our strategy with the United States, we are obviously, this is a security, right? So, real estate is a without a doubt. We sort of have a perspective on this, right? Which is that we absolutely need there to be clarity before we enter into this marketplace, right? But there are also services that we can provide that are sort of, I say peripheral, but they're in the core of this value proposition. But the fractionalization, the token as a fractionalized asset, that is where we need SEC clarity, right? We need regulatory clarity. But the ability to transact and the efficiencies of the transaction itself, that is something that the market is ripe for disruption, and it's ripe for disruption with participants who are very, very entrenched. I mean, this is the classic evolution, right? From almost analog to digital. It's almost as big as that within the real estate market. So for us in markets where there is a lack of clarity, we do have services to offer that address efficiencies within transactions, opening up markets, bringing that commercial demand, connecting supply and demand, and things along those lines. The ability to tokenize is the variable. And it's not just the US. I mean, Europe is in Guillermo, Marek can speak much better than I can to this, but Europe is still in the process of defining. There are definitely countries that are much further along the path and much clearer. That's where we're starting. Similarly in Asia. So maybe Guillermo or Marek, I'll hand it over to you to give an answer to that, in the global perspective.
Yeah, so we are based in Prague, Czech Republic. By the way, we are physically now in a conference in the Prague Castle. So where I'm located, you're in a very unique place right now. We want to start here because we're here, obviously. One thing, and second, Europe versus US has the difference is this upcoming clear regulation called MiCA. And by the way, there was very interesting discussions here around it. And essentially, the rules are going to be clear in a year from now. And for us, it gives us the confidence, the trust that we can start here, and then we will have no surprises further down the line. So versus the US, we're just waiting until the rules are a bit more clear, and we will also have the chance to kick things off here, to have all the all process nailed down, and then the moment it's clear, happy to go to the US.
And worldwide too, right? So our value proposition, if we fast forward 5 years, it's global, right? And I mean, that speaks to the whole breadth of offer, breadth of choices, the core value of the platform itself. So APAC, Australia, we are absolutely global focused, but as Guillermo said, it's incremental. We'll start, we're in a heavy build process. So even if we weren't restricted, we would still have a phased deployment because obviously we need to do that, because each one of these markets that we open, it's not just opening a market, it's activating entire ecosystems to supply the properties and participate, but also, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, the wraparound services of operations and maintenance support, right? Contractors, remodelers, appliances, basically the whole marketplace will be built in every country and every geo that we enter.
For those that may be new to blockchain technology, when you are looking for something on Amazon, you're pretty confident that if you buy something, that's going to be delivered, right? But when you're working with a marketplace that's fairly new, how do you prove to your users that, yes, we actually have access to this specific property that you're planning on investing in? Is there like a verification process? What kind of due diligence do people need to do on their end to have the confidence that, yes, if I invest in this, I will in exchange receive, this?
Yeah. So I think that there are a couple layers. I mean, I think that there's the technical layer, which Marek, maybe you can kind of walk through, our partnership and our partnerships on the technology side from an auditing standpoint. I'll start with the almost what I think the core of your question is, which is how do I know if I'm buying an apartment that I'm actually buying an apartment? It's not a barn or somebody's RV parked in a dump somewhere, right? This goes back to the whole, we're not changing the way things are transacted. We're not changing titling, and we're not changing the transaction framework. So the way that you verify that property is exactly the way that everybody verifies property now, is there's title, right? And there's a title clearing process. We are just curating that process in a Web3 blockchain-based format. So, that whole question is answered as simply as that, right? Marek, maybe you can spend a little bit of time talking through some of the rigor that we have on the security and safety.
Yeah. So, high level, we're obviously going to be audited by a third-party auditor, right? Both legally and side of smart contracts and security. But for you, if you would want to personally check that you actually bought a share in a given property, there's like every single country is a little bit different, right? So yeah, let's go for example the Czech Republic, right? Because we're gonna be starting. So what you want to do is you want to essentially take the ID of the property, go to the cadastral registry, which is run by the government, and essentially do what you would do normally without blockchain, right? There you would see that the property is owned by an SPV company, which is essentially going to be a limited company. That company will have its it's a, I don't know how it's called exactly, but essentially when you set up the company, within the setup of the company, you're going to say that the company is owned by the token holders, right? And you're gonna publish all the paperwork, both on the government registry for the companies and also on, for example, IPFS, right? So that anyone can access it, right? Not even like if you don't know like the Czech system or French or US, yeah, you have a way where to go, where to look for the legal paperwork, right? So you do that, and then you just go through the contract, read it through it. At some point, there will be address for the tokens, and you're gonna check that the address of the tokens that you own is the same as the address of the tokens that are in the contract, in the legal contract. So that's how you could check this manually on your own. And we're going to be providing all this information within the app so that the users can actually do this. And yeah, just because we want to be open with them, and we want them to trust us and to have everything in their hands.
Yeah, I would be very interested to see how, I don't know if it would be in the form of a demo or like a step 1, step 2 within the application, but I imagine that a lot of people that would want to participate, they would want a little bit of clarity on that side. So I'm glad to hear that is, top priority for you. And Michael, to your point, absolutely, like you're not trying to reinvent the wheel here, just trying to streamline the process. And like with anything, I think it takes time, but little by little we'll get that adoption, and especially what's happening within the crypto space right now. I think that with the spot Bitcoin ETF, I think in general it'll accelerate the entire landscape. So really exciting stuff. Marek, Guillermo, and Michael, thank you so much for joining today. Any parting thoughts for the listeners, and also where can people learn more about Tauvlo?
We have a website. It's called Tauvlo.com. Easy. And we are happy for people to join the community. We're going to be sharing all kinds of updates on RBA, on tokenization, how everything's going on our updates. We expect to have first properties tokenized in the first half of 2024. And yeah, any early birds that we want to be hosted and be informed, we're happy to build this community.
Yeah, and just to echo Guillermo, I'd say if you're interested in learning more about it, the website, our Twitter, we communicate primarily through Twitter and LinkedIn. We've got a series of blog pieces that we put out through the website. So those or getting in touch with any of us, Marek, Guillermo, and I are always available to chat. We're very, very passionate about this space, and would welcome discussion on any level, both as from anybody who's interested in investing in the properties and participating on the platform, and I would also say equally, especially now as we're building our ecosystem, channels are very, very important, so that when we enter the markets, we've got complete value to the investors. So if anybody on the ecosystem side, whether they be real estate holders, or anybody in the value chain. If you'd like to learn more about what we can help you with and how you could participate, we'd love to talk to you as well.
Well said. Well, this was a real pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you so much for informing me, informing the listeners. I'm really looking forward to seeing the development that happens, not only the industry, but specifically with Tauvlo as well. So thanks so much. And until next time.
Yeah, thanks for having us.